Hello dear friends and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'll be testing a full set of watercolor brushes I received from Fuumuui. This is not a sponsor review and as always I'll share my honest impressions with you. I'll begin with some technical tests, then we'll see the brushes in practice with a few illustrations, and finally I'll share my final thoughts about their performance, authenticity and ethical concerns. The brushes arrived in neat packaging, but I did notice the unnecessary use of plastic, and for me that's already 1 point less when it comes to sustainability. On the other hand, the squirrel brush came in a simple cardboard box without any plastic at all, which I really appreciated. At first glance the brushes look solid, the handles seem well made, although I was a bit disappointed that the only information printed on the handle is the brand name and the size. No mention of the material, which I think is important. When I gently pull at the bristles, some hairs come loose. For me, that's a big no. Not only does it raise concerns about the durability of the brush, but in watercolor, a loose hair can easily ruin a wash. It leaves marks that are very hard to correct while the paper is still wet. Now I should say right away that I'm not an expert in brush authentication, especially when it comes to natural hair, but I did a few comparative tests with other brushes I own from brands like Da Vinci and Rembrandt. Of course, more in-depth testing would be needed to confirm authenticity, but here's what I observed. Both the red sable and the squirrel brushes feel very soft to the touch when dry, very similar to natural hair brushes I already own. From what I've learned, dry brushes should spring back quickly to their shape, but when wet they should hold their shape under pressure. I tested these brushes both dry and wet, and in both cases they behaved as expected for natural hair. They returned quickly to their original form and held their shape well under pressure when loaded with water. When natural hair brushes are wet, they tend to expand, just like human hair in water. Both the red sable and the squirrel brushes behave like other natural hair brushes here, swelling nicely. One key feature of natural hair is that it forms a belly in its shape, while synthetic fibers tend to look narrow and elongated. The red sable brushes failed this test. They didn't form a belly. The squirrel brush, however, did. I loaded the brushes to see how many continuous lines they could make before drying out, comparing them with brushes from other brands. My impression was that both hold water quite well. Compared with the Da Vinci Maestro, the Fuumuui Red Sable produced just 1 line less, which shows it carries only slightly less water. For the squirrel brush, I didn't have another of the same size to compare directly, but it managed to fill 2 full sketchbook pages on its own, so I would say it passed this test beautifully. I then test them on paper with a series of strokes, thin lines, continuous lines, curves, pressure variations, small dots and washes. This helps me understand control and responsiveness. The red sable set passed most of the tests, except for the shape test, which for me is an important characteristic of natural hair. This leads me to think that perhaps these brushes are not made of 100% natural hair. It could be a mix of natural and synthetic fibers or simply a lower grade of natural hair. I have no way of knowing for sure. In general, I like how they perform, but the shedding hairs definitely left me with some reservations. I'll need to test them over time to see if this was just an one-off or a recurring issue. As for the squirrel brush, I was genuinely surprised by the quality. It performs beautifully, and I also love the unique handle design. The end of the handle echoes the tip of the brush in wood, a small detail that makes this brush stand out. When I move on to real illustrations, the first thing I notice is that these brushes are extremely smooth and hold a generous amount of water. They are so soft that sometimes I barely felt the brush touching the paper. I particularly like the size 0 brush. It has a long tip that allowed me to create fine lines and add delicate details. However, once again, some hairs came loose while painting, and this is where the performance and the problem clash. A brush can be excellent, but if I'm constantly worried about hairs falling out and ruin my work, I can't fully enjoy the process. On the other hand, the squirrel brush impressed me again. It carries a lot of water, it's very soft, and it allows me to create beautiful soft washes and organic shapes, perfect for wet-on-wet techniques. According to Fuumuui, the brand was born out of a passion for art, with their founder growing up learning from his father, a watercolor painter in China. They say every brush is handmade in their own factory with carefully sourced materials, and that all hair is naturally shed, meaning no animals are harmed in the process. They also emphasize values of sustainability, ethics, and respect for nature. I appreciate their statement, but I personally found the answers quite vague, and some points raise more questions than clarity. For instance, they don't mention how it's possible to produce natural hair brushes at such a competitive price compared to other brands. To put it in perspective, the price of this entire 9-brush set is equivalent to, or even less than, the price of a single brush from another professional brand. So here is my honest conclusion. I actually enjoy using these brushes and their performance is undeniable. They are smooth, responsive, and very pleasant to work with. However, I do have reservations about whether the sable hair is truly 100% natural, the shedding hairs I experienced during use, and the lack of transparency regarding their sourcing methods. For me, ethics in materials is a very important point. That being said, my rule here is to be transparent with you, to share both the strengths and the doubts, and to let you make your own informed decision. I hope this review helps you see the brushes more clearly and decide if they're right for you. And just as a final note, even though I didn't join their affiliate program, Fuumuui has provided a discount code for my audience. If you decide to try the brushes, you can use the code VANYA15 on their website for 15% off any order. The code is valid only on their official website, not on Amazon. I'll leave the link and code in the description as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!